Hey, welcome back to the Crazy Dre podcast show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know what time it is. It's time to talk about your Detroit Tigers baseball. It's time to talk about other Detroit sports news in itself and maybe around the sports world. And we got to talk about a little bit of everything about this. The Tigers have won last 5 out of 6 games. They've won two of the last series that they played. They're looking better. I said this in beginning of June before they played any games in June. The Detroit Tigers up to July before the All Star weekend, they're probably going to have to win about 30 to 30 games of the 35 that they play. They're going to have to win the majority of the series. They have to beat at least Cleveland once in that series that's coming up in a couple weeks. Uh, but for them to beat Tampa Bay and swept the Tampa Bay Rays, that is something. But Tampa Bay Rays do have a hot streak in the beginning of the year, and then they cool off along the way and into the playoffs. A lot of teams happen to be that way. Tampa Bay Rays is a good example of that. But it looks like Detroit's looking very, very good. You got Kevin McGonigal that in the bottom of the ninth drove in McKinstry and Perez to win. Uh, He's a clutch hitter. You gotta love the kid. This kid is what Detroit needed: a hot hat, discipline, stays low to the ground, is a very picky hitter, and he does what he is supposed to do. He doesn't try to hit a home run. He did hit a home run in that same game though, but he doesn't try to get a home run. He just made a single, knew the situation in the game, and made things happen. I think that's one thing that Detroit has a huge advantage about. And I just wanted to bring up about uh, one of the other guy that I want to talk about before going to Tarek Skubal. I have to talk about Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter within the first 6 games of the series, he basically did his job. He came back from an AC joint sprain, which he ran into the wall and did something to his shoulder, and he just was out for at least a couple weeks, almost a month. Uh, he made his comeback on May 31st. He's batting 400 up to the 6th game of the series, not the 7th game. That they just played against Seattle. He went 8 for 20, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, and I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this guy might be the key in Detroit Tigers' momentum, his positive energy. I keep talking about his positive energy, the different feel that you get when he's on the team and when he's not on the team. That's something that I think that if you're a Detroit Tiger fan or any baseball fan or any sports fan, you have to lean on guys like this that create positive energy when the team's not playing well or even when the team's playing real well. So I mean that is something that we should all consider. Even when we go to work, bring that positive energy, make things happen, make the rest of the day go real well, and make it fun, and let's go. But let's get back to where I want to talk about um, a really unique thing about what happened to me this past weekend. So, as you guys know, Tarek Skubal did his little rehab at the Whitecaps, Grand Rapids Whitecaps team. It's the Division A high division team that is associated with the Detroit Tigers, which I was really surprised that they let them down all the way down to almost like triple A, high A baseball because the hitters themselves are not that good. I know a lot of people would tell me that he was probably there just to get his arm moving. He's not going to be concerned about strikeouts. Just seeing how his motion, how he feels, how it works out. The tickets for that game, for the Whitecaps game, was skyrocket. You could have easily gone to Detroit, seen him play for a lot cheaper, and drove 2.5 hours to Detroit from where West Michigan Whitecaps is. So that was amazing that this guy came into West Michigan. But that is not the height of the story. So the height of the story is that he and his buddies or his entourage, and I'm thinking it's more like his bodyguards and maybe a couple of friends. He came into West Michigan. He went to New Holland Brewing, which is on the west side, and then he popped into the Anchor Bar, and we were at a different bar. Me and a couple other guys, uh, and the bartender there let us know that Scuba might come to Bridge Street. The Bridge Street is the bar that we were at. Bridge Street Bar is a sports bar. However, I had an indication that he would not come to any further on the west side because it was about 8 o'clock and dark and everything else with it. Uh, the way that the walking route is to where he probably stayed, he would have to go over the bridge, maybe go over by the park. I don't know how when Park in Grand Rapids in the daylight. Probably didn't want to do anything in the dark. So we went there. I had to go see if it was true if he was there, and it was true. The one thing I thought that maybe it wasn't him because I thought that he was a little taller than I was not expecting. Well, I thought he was a lot taller than when I met him. He's probably 6'5", 6'6", but I think in reality he's probably only like 6'3". So when I saw him, he was shooting darts. I had to see if he's going to throw left-handed or right-handed. You know how that story goes. And, it was crazy. We couldn't take photographs with him, but he was a real cool guy. I shook his hand. Honest God, I shook his hand. I have two witnesses. One guy is selling his book on Facebook and on Amazon about his life story as a um, bar kind of guy. And the other guy is one of our neighbors where we shoot pool, go bowling, and just hop around Grand Rapids. And those are the two witnesses. I know that you guys don't believe me, but I met Terry Scribble. It was really, really cool to see someone that close, and it was bizarre. It was just bizarre. I It was something that I'll probably never forget in my whole life. And in some ways, I really think that maybe, just maybe, he's saying his goodbyes to Detroit by hitting all the division league teams. There's a word right now that the Tigers are not looking to trade, but I think that's just a hogwash. I think they're just going to sit around and maybe see where Detroit is a week or two before the All Star weekend, and then maybe prop up the trading again, the trades again. If Detroit is 5 games, 4 games behind Cleveland or whoever it is in that division, even the White Sox, if they're behind 5 games in the division up to the point where they're start of the second half of the season and even um, parts of July going into August. August 6th, I think, is like the deadline for trades or something like that. So if Detroit plays well, I don't see them trading them, but we will lose him. We'll lose him if he doesn't sign back with Detroit in the offseason. So it's a helter skelter moment to have a guy like that. But I sometimes think that he might have peaked last year and the year before. Now his injuries might be coming more noticeable. He might lose a little velocity. Not really sure where to go with that idea, but I just think that if he's turning 30 this year and he is expecting to be somewhere else for 7, 8 years, I don't know if any team would take that bargain unless you're the Dodgers or the Yankees or something like that. But in the future, in 2027, the bargain deal with the MLB in the salary cap could affect where Tarek Skubal is going and where he's not going. If 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 MLB goes on strike, I could see him going away from Detroit. I think if MLB puts a cap on a certain cap level, amount of money, he might stay in Detroit because then the playing field is hypothetically better in our situation. But is it really better for baseball to put a cap on every team? Because again, what I said, that's my last podcast. If you have a cap, you have a lot of more mediocre teams who can't trade to go to the next step to make the playoffs or go into the World Series environment. That's what caps happen sometimes, where in reality you want a villain like the Dodgers, the Yankees, St. Louis Cardinals. I know the Cardinals are not really a good example of that, but even Boston Red Sox. Um, that is something that you can consider. The reason why we keep Tarek Skubal is that if that salary cap happens, or if we go on strike and then things don't go as well to plan, and teams are scared to take on a person who's probably missed the whole year to 2027 in the future, there's a possibility that next year, 2027, could be a total loss. So if he's not under contract by the time he's at the end of 2026, it could be a worse thing for him, but a good thing for Detroit. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to speculate anything else with it. I will talk about the. I'm going to go back to the game against Seattle Mariners. I have to talk about Jack Flaherty because he's been getting a lot of crap about him not pitching well or situations and all that. But I want to say that in this game against the Mariners, the game that they came back with, he pitched 5 innings, gave up 6 hits. Um, he walked one guy. He gave up 3 earned runs. He had 7 strikeouts, 54 strikes out of 87 pitches. Even when things didn't go to plan and he left guys on base and was no out or one out, he didn't have that flustered moment where he was talking to himself and getting angry and all that. And I think that's called the maturity thing about this. I think it's very important to put this in place. If you cannot work through your problems, through the good times and the bad times, and you allow your emotions get in place, you're going to have a long day at your job. Doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter you work at auto body parts or a supermarket, a baseball athlete, whatever. And I would have, and I said this in the past. I think that for some reason, Jack Flaherty doesn't seem to smile a lot. He doesn't have that. Uh, I don't know what it is. I feel like he puts a lot of stress on himself. He puts a lot of guilt and a lot of things going through his brain that we may not understand. So I can be more understandable for him, and I don't know his situation with his family, but I wish that we had more of this smiling than a guy that won the game, well, didn't win, but he gets credit for having a great outing against Seattle. So for him to have a great outing against Seattle and then talking to him, the journalist talking to him, he even didn't even smile that much, which again, it's always a concern for me. Uh, I also want to talk about a situation that happened twice, and I can't. Oh yeah, this is it right here. So I'm going to show you this little picture. It's actually the game that one of the games of, I think it was game 2 actually, of Dylan Dillinger as a catcher, and then Josh Naylor sliding to home plate. Now, there's a story behind this. One of the stories is this: the game 1 against Detroit in the evening, uh, Kevin McGago hit a straight shot to first base. The first baseman, Josh Naylor, picked it up. They're both guys, Naylor and McGago, were running to first base, and it looked like Josh Naylor deliberately got in the way of Kevin Mangago, the rookie. And that in itself could be considered a cheap shot. Consider what happened to an LA Dodgers player recently, that the first baseman and him, for, I forget the guy's name, forget the Dodgers guy, but they collided against each other. And this again is another example of Josh Naylor colliding right into Kevin Mangago. Uh, in this situation, in this picture, you see Josh Naylor sliding, but he had one of his equipments for his arm or whatever, safety equipment for his arm or his leg, and he threw it towards home plate to making a distraction to Dylan Dillinger, and that was not called for. I think that Seattle's playing kind of cheap. I know that Seattle is in first place in their division, but none of that crap that we don't need to see that crap. Just play baseball. Stop running into Kevin McGonigal. Stop throwing things right at our catcher. That's just not called for. So that's something that I think that um, Montero, Kendra Montero, threw at Josh Naylor for those two incidents of and Josh Naylor pretended that there was no big deal. His big old smile on his face. I think he knew that he deserved it in all way around. So there you go. I don't have a picture of Will Vest. I don't think. I don't think I do. No, this is Dillinger. So this is the guy I was talking about. That Josh Naylor threw his equipment at Dillinger at home plate. So, but going back to what I want to talk about Will Vest of Detroit Tigers. Well, now Will Vest was the closer for Detroit last year, majority of last year and the year before, and then we got Jensen to come in from the Angels for free agency, and he's down on a 15-game IL. Um, so he's not with the team. But Will Vest should be the closer. I feel like it was a slow start. Things didn't really work to plan right away with him. But I feel like with Will Vest, he should take on that role as a closer. I think the team works better that way with them. They just kind of you can tell the team just gravitates to Will Vest as a closer, and Will Vest gravitates to being that closer. That's his job. That's what he's proud of. That's what he wants to be known for. Keep him there, AJ Hinge. Let him work his stuff out. For Jensen at the seventh, eighth inning, and you know, just let it ride. Uh, on other notes, I want to talk about for Detroit. Um, it doesn't look like a good thing for Detroit. But Dylan, let's see here, Dylan Larkin here. This guy wants to trade. This guy is a 11-year veteran. He had played on the USA hockey team, won the gold, and now he had the taste for uh, a winning team. He has not made the playoffs since his rookie year, and there's a lot of things that's going on. One of those things is probably Stevie Eisenman. Now, Stevie Eisenman is a beloved hockey player for Detroit of that team of the back-to-back championships, Stanley Cups championships in '97 and '98. But as a GM in Detroit, he's won one. Steve has won with Florida Lightnings, but he has not really done much with Detroit Red Wings. I think this is going into his eighth year for Stevie, and he hasn't really done much with the captain Larkin. And Larkin and him are butting heads. Larkin can't figure out why Detroit Red Wings have not been able to make key trades in March to kickstart their playoff run. And I think the problem that you're going to really have is Illich, the family that owns the Red Wings and the Tigers. Now, this is a big deal because if the father of Chris Illich, the father would have spent money to make the Red Wings good and to make the Tigers good. Would have they signed Larkin and traded for players for Larkin? I think he would have. But the son, he's he's just tight with his money. He doesn't really. I think that it's difficult to understand how much money that you have or you don't have in the ownership. You don't know where to throw your dollar bills. Do you go with the Red Wings or do you go with the Tigers? This is an issue when families own a multiple teams in the same city. I don't really like it. I think it takes away from the pureness of making that particular team great. And I think that the Red Wings and the Tigers are going to be hurting with it. Tigers obviously are in the better suit because we our farm system is happen to be a little bit better than the Red Wings as of right now. So Larkin, if he does go, I don't know who Detroit's going to go after, but you know, maybe the road is over. Maybe Stevie Eisman's career with Detroit's GM work is over as well. I can't tell you what way, one way, or another. I'm just going based on what I know and what I don't know. But in a final note, I know your Yankee fans are concerned. Aaron Judge is out for, I guess they say indefinitely, which means at least 30 days, I guess. They say that he probably did it during in April against, I think against the Miami Marlins. No, the Astros. So he made a dive for a ball. He clearly wasn't having close to the ball, and he landed on his stomach and he probably landed on his ribs. So he has a discomfort on his ribs, so he's out. Um, but the Yankees are playing the Cleveland Guardians as right now, so we kind of need the Yankees to win, and we need the Cleveland start to lose if you're a Detroit Tiger fan. Um, what else could I talk about? I guess I could talk about how much the Knicks are playing real well against San Antonio against game 1 and 2. So um, Victor Wembanyama, he cannot hit a couple of his key late second shots. So, and I think the one thing that the Knicks are doing real well against Wembanyama is that they're playing him physically, but they're playing him smart. They're not over physically powering him, but they're not allowing him to be in a certain spots where the ball comes to him easy. I know a lot of times Wembanyama can get open by just doing a pick and roll, running up and down the court, fast break uh, opportunities, or even in half court opportunities. And players on the other team lose track where he's at because he's always moving. The Knicks are doing a real good job of always feeling him out where he's at and putting a body or a face in front of him. So that's something that if you're a Knick fan, that's great. If you're a Spurs fan, not so good. Um, Brunson's just playing real well. He can hit. Brunson can hit 3 pointers, 15 footers. He can make himself available going to the hole, making points, getting to the foul line. It'd be interesting to see what happens in Game 3 that's happening right now. But folks, if you like this podcast, let me know what you guys think. I will. I think I'm going to try to change my setup a little bit, and maybe do maybe a little sets of stuff in the future, so that it doesn't become like the news broadcast world like that the way I'm doing. I may become more personal. Let me know what you guys want me to do. Or you want me to change this up a little bit? Do you want me to concentrate on the game itself? or the teams itself. I know when our Detroit Lions picks back up, the NFL picks up, I'll be able to do more. It's easier to do Detroit Lions analytical game setting in itself, but cheers, love, follow, subscribe, Patreon, that's where I'm at, YouTube, anywhere. Peace, love, and I'm out of here.